All right, let's talk about something anyone who's rented or owned a property in Nigeria knows all too well. That tricky relationship between landlords and tenants. It can get complicated, right? So much back and forth, so many misunderstandings. Well, today, we're going to cut right through all that confusion.
Think about this. A tenant is months behind on rent, so the landlord just goes and changes the locks. Or maybe a landlord keeps bothering a tenant, trying to get them to leave. These things happen all the time. So who's right, who's wrong? You might think it's an easy answer, but the law looks at it very differently. It's not really about picking a winner.
And here's the absolute core of it all. The whole point of Nigeria's tenancy law isn't to help the landlord win or to give the tenant all the power. Nope. It's all about one single thing: creating a balance. A fair system where everybody knows exactly where they stand, what they're entitled to, and, just as important, what's expected of them.
Okay, so to really get this, let's start with the tenant's side of the equation. The law basically gives tenants a pretty strong legal shield. It's there to protect you and make sure you have a safe, secure place to call home. Now, one of the biggest rights you have is something called quiet enjoyment. And no, that doesn't mean your neighbors have to be silent. It means that once you're in, that space is yours. The landlord can't just pop in whenever they feel like it or mess with your day-to-day life. They absolutely have to give you proper notice before coming over, unless, there's a major emergency.
Okay, and this is probably the most important one. A landlord cannot, I repeat, cannot just throw you out. I don't care if you're behind on rent or if you broke a rule in the agreement. It doesn't matter. They can't just kick you to the curb. There is a very specific, very strict legal process, and they have to follow it.
And this process isn't just a friendly suggestion, it is the law. First, they have to give you a formal quit notice. After that, they have to serve another notice. This one's called a notice of intent to recover possession. And even after all that, they still can't do anything until they've gone to court and a judge has issued an official court order for eviction. Only then, and I mean only then, can an eviction actually happen legally.
So, what does that mean in practice? It means a landlord cannot take matters into their own hands. They can't change the locks on you. They can't throw your stuff out. They can't cut off your water or electricity to try and force you out. All that, completely illegal. If they do any of it, they are breaking the law. And as the tenant, you have every right to take legal action.
The law also makes sure you aren't just suddenly left without a roof over your head. It sets out minimum notice periods. So, for a yearly tenancy, for example, a landlord has to give you a full 6 months notice. 6 months! The whole idea is to give you a fair amount of time to find a new place to live without being in a total panic.
But, and this is a big but, this legal shield we've been talking about isn't a free pass. It's not a one-way street. With all those rights come some really important responsibilities. So now, let's look at the tenant side of the bargain.
And this really brings us back to that idea of a balance, right? You get the right to quiet enjoyment, to live in peace. But that right is held up by your number one duty, paying your rent on time and in full. That's the deal. It's really the heart of the whole agreement. And it doesn't stop with the rent, of course. You're also expected to be a good steward of the property. Take reasonable care of the place, don't go around causing deliberate damage, and stick to the rules you agreed to in the contract. Like, for instance, not secretly subletting a room to someone else. It's just about being a responsible resident.
All right, so now let's flip the coin and look at this whole thing from the landlord's point of view. Because the law isn't just about protecting tenants. It also offers some very real protections for property owners and their investment.
When you boil it down, a landlord's rights are pretty straightforward. They have the right to get paid for the use of their property, that's the rent, and they have the right to get their property back when the tenancy is over or if the agreement is broken. But, and this is the critical part we keep coming back to, they have to do it legally.
But just like with the tenant, those rights don't exist in a vacuum. They are perfectly balanced with some very important duties. See, a landlord isn't just someone who collects money once a month. They are providing a home.
And here we see that balance again, clear as day. The landlord has the right to get their rent check, absolutely. But in return, they have a serious responsibility to make sure the place is habitable. That means it has to be safe, secure, and basically fit for a human being to live in. We're talking about things like a solid roof, working plumbing, the essentials.
And this goes beyond just the bricks and mortar of the building. Landlords have a duty to treat their tenants with respect. That means respecting their privacy and their dignity. It means managing the property in a way that's professional, not based on intimidation or harassment. That kind of behavior completely violates a tenant's rights. So, okay, what happens when things do go wrong? Because sometimes, even with the best intentions, disputes pop up. Well, the law provides a pathway for that too. Look, before you even think about lawyers and courtrooms, the best first step is almost always just to talk. Trying to negotiate a solution or even bringing in a neutral third person, a mediator, can save both the landlord and the tenant an incredible amount of time, money, and headaches. And really, this quote from the law itself just sums up the entire philosophy behind all these rules. The goal is to make sure the whole housing sector works in an orderly and equitable manner. It's not about creating winners and losers in a fight. It's about building a system that's fair, that's predictable, and that works for everybody.
So there you have it. Just knowing these rules is a huge first step. It's the foundation. But it kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? Now that we understand the balance the law is trying to create, what's the next step? What can we all do, whether we're tenants or landlords, to help build a rental culture that's really based on mutual respect and honesty? That's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.